The story follows Nick Powell, a high school senior on the verge of graduating with top honors. His father tragically passed away a few years earlier, leaving his mother, Diane, to take charge of everything. She pulled herself together, managed their finances, and began to control every aspect of Nick's life. Diane dreams of her son having a stable, conventional career, but Nick, who excels academically, is passionate about writing and literature. In fact, he's so determined to pursue his passion that he's planning to skip his graduation ceremony to attend a writer's workshop program in London. The scene shifts to the Powell household, where a grand celebration is taking place. Diane, the matriarch, stands up to deliver a speech, recognizing her son's impressive academic achievements. She raises a toast in Nick's honor and presents him with a gift engraved with his name. However, Nick doesn't seem pleased by the attention. Instead of enjoying the party, he walks away from the guests, grabs a slice of cake, and heads to the garage. Sitting at a workbench, he suddenly pulls a shotgun to his face, but this dark moment turns out to be a dream, and Nick wakes up startled the next morning. Afterwards, he heads downstairs to the kitchen, where his mother is sitting at the table. She's prepared a breakfast of 2 eggs and bacon arranged in the shape of a smiley face. As Diane reads the newspaper, Nick interrupts her to ask if she's considered the writer's workshop in London. Diane, almost dismissively, responds that she doesn't need to think about it. Nick already knows how she feels about the workshop. It's clear that she wants him to stay in America and focus on a traditional career. After the awkward breakfast, Nick grabs his bike and heads to school. We learn that he does homework for his classmates in exchange for money, handing an assignment to one of his friends in the hallway for a quick cash transaction. Meanwhile, Nick's best friend, Peter Egan, is being bullied by a group of students in the boys' bathroom. The gang's leader is Annie Newton, a tough and reckless girl who's involved in various petty crimes. She had sold Peter a stolen phone a few days earlier and now demands the rest of the money, threatening to cut off his finger if he doesn't pay up soon. When she leaves, her lackeys follow her. During lunchtime, Nick approaches Annie and offers to pay for the phone Peter bought from her, placing a wad of cash on the table and asking if it's enough. Annie doesn't take kindly to his offer and tells him to mind his own business. Nick, undeterred, bends down and tells her she's emotionally broken. Offended, Annie attempts to attack him. Moments later, both are summoned to the principal's office, where the headmaster asks about the incident. Nick jokes that Annie finds him attractive, but the principal is having none of it, dismissing Annie to go home and warning Nick not to waste time on people with no future. Elsewhere, Annie returns home to her chaotic, dysfunctional family. She lives with her stepmother, father, and younger brother, Victor. Her stepmother is glued to the TV, smoking and ignoring her responsibilities, which enrages Annie. She chastises her for not feeding Victor, forcing her stepmom to get up from the couch. The stepmother complains to her husband, but he sides with Annie, leading to a heated argument. Though it's clear this kind of drama is common, Annie quietly feeds Victor and retreats to her room. Later that night, Peter visits Nick at home, and the two friends talk. Peter asks if Nick is going to the party hosted by one of their classmates. Nick replies that he won't be attending because he has other plans. He then gives Peter a book with a plane ticket to London hidden inside. Peter finally understands that Nick is leaving to attend the writer's workshop program. He asks if Nick's mom knows about this, and Nick admits she doesn't. He explains that since his father passed away, his mother has tried to control every aspect of his life, suffocating him with her plans for his future. Meanwhile, Annie is out with her delinquent boyfriend, Marcus Bohem. They head downtown, where Marcus breaks into an expensive car. Annie escalates things by smashing the window of a jewelry store and stealing a beautiful necklace. The two flee in the stolen car just as the police arrive. The next morning, Annie prepares to head to school after spending the night with Marcus. He asks her to leave the bag with the stolen jewelry behind, but she doesn't trust him, which enrages him. After she leaves, Marcus calls the authorities and informs them of her crime. Later at school, Annie hides the stolen necklace in her locker. Peter, who happens to be nearby, accidentally spots her doing so. Nick is about to step aside when Annie catches him staring in her direction. Things take a turn for the worse shortly after, as the police show up at the school and arrest Annie for theft. They also break into her locker and find the stolen jewelry. Later, Annie calls her lover to tell him she's been arrested, and he pretends to be innocent while she accuses him of being the one who ratted her out. At home, Nick's mother tells him that the airline had contacted her. She reveals that his flight has been rescheduled, clearly indicating that she now knows about his trip to London. Panicked, Nick tries to explain himself, but his mother is visibly disappointed by his actions. Later that night, Peter is on his way to a house party when he's suddenly ambushed by Annie and her gang. She believes Peter is the one who informed on her and is out for revenge. Terrified, Peter quickly fabricates a story, claiming that Nick was the one who tipped off the police about the theft. Meanwhile, at the party, Nick has a change of heart about going to London. He hands his ticket and hotel booking to a random girl at the party before stepping outside for a walk. But as he walks, an old battered car starts following him. It's Annie and her crew. When Nick reaches a quiet stretch of road, they stop the car and jump out, attacking him. Peter watches helplessly from the car as his best friend is beaten mercilessly. Annie then confronts Nick, sarcastically asking, "Who's the broken one now?" Nick snaps back, telling her she's still the emotionally broken one. Enraged, Annie kicks Nick with all her might, and he tumbles down the road, hitting his head on a rock. Panicked, one of the gang members checks on Nick and realizes he's barely breathing. The group is terrified they've just committed murder. Suddenly, Annie regains her composure and orders her henchmen to carry Nick's body. They do so, reluctantly, dumping it in a storm drain and covering it up. During this, Nick's watch falls off, but no one notices. Afterward, Annie heads to her boyfriend Marcus's house and confesses to him that she killed Nick. She begs for his help in coming up with a cover story, but Marcus, fearing he'll be implicated, tries to kick her out. Furious at his betrayal, Annie threatens to expose all the cars he's stolen over the years. She then goes to a nearby bridge and burns her clothes. In a shocking twist, the next morning, a completely unscathed Nick emerges from the bushes. He heads to school as usual, but when he tries to talk to his classmates, he realizes no one can see or hear him. He even throws a book across the room, but there's no reaction. He goes to the principal's office, where he overhears his mother on the phone. Desperate to reach her, Nick tries to speak, but his voice doesn't seem to come through. Confused and terrified, Nick runs back home, only to be hit by a car in the middle of the street. Then, a huge truck runs over him, but somehow, he emerges unscathed from both accidents. To his horror, no one walking on the street acknowledges his presence. Back at home, Nick tries again to get his mother's attention, but she's too busy talking to the police on the phone. She reports him as missing, and Nick finally realizes the chilling truth. He's dead. Detectives Kate and Brian are assigned to investigate Nick's disappearance. They find tire tracks deep in the woods and a broken car side mirror on the ground. They also hear about the altercation between Nick and Annie a few days earlier. The detectives visit Annie's house where they find her sitting on the roof. Brian, who once worked with her father, asks if she's seen Nick recently. Annie lies, claiming she hasn't seen him since their argument. Brian, sensing Annie is struggling with her father's second marriage, decides to let her off the hook for now, but asks her to contact them if she learns anything new. Meanwhile, a search party is organized to look for Nick in the woods. Nick, having accepted his fate, is back in his room, trying to figure out what to do next. He notices a beautiful bird on the porch railing, looking close to death. Just as it appears the bird will die, a live one suddenly lands on his shoulder. Nick grabs the live bird in his hand, noticing it looks identical to the injured one. But as the injured bird dies on the porch outside, the live bird vanishes simultaneously. This moment leads Nick to a startling realization. He's experiencing an out-of-body phenomenon. His spiritual form will disappear entirely once he dies in the physical world. Meanwhile, Detective Brian confronts Marcus in his garage about the jewelry shop robbery. Marcus feigns ignorance, claiming he was working there during the incident. However, Brian remains skeptical and instructs Marcus to contact the police station if he encounters Annie. Later, Marcus, visibly anxious, approaches Pete on the street, warning him that the cops are after him. Together, they return to the woods where Nick was last seen. Quietly, they retrieve Nick's body from the storm drain and relocate it. Marcus, feeling Annie has become uncontrollable, decides to eliminate her. He arranges a meeting near a train station, pretending he only wants to talk. Annie, unaware of his true intentions, invites Peter to join her, not realizing the police are tailing him. When the three meet at the designated spot, Marcus reveals his plan, pulling a gun on Annie. He orders Pete to stay silent and sends him home. Just then, the police arrive, creating a distraction. Annie seizes the opportunity, grabs Marcus's gun, and escapes. Nick, who's present with the cops, shouts that they'll catch her. To his astonishment, Annie responds with a defiant, "Never," hinting she can hear him despite not seeing him. The following day, Annie sneaks into Nick's room after spending the night in the school gym. She examines his childhood photos and begins to see parallels between their lives. Both endured broken households and emotionally distant parents. The weight of having killed Nick in a rage starts to gnaw at her conscience. But before she can delve deeper, Nick's mother unexpectedly enters the room, forcing Annie to flee. She rushes to the woods where she last saw Nick, only to find his body missing from the storm drain. Instead, she discovers a nicotine gum pack, suspecting Marcus had been there. Determined, Annie tracks Marcus down and confronts him at gunpoint on a ledge. Marcus confesses to moving Nick's body, revealing it's now at the foot of a nearby dam set to open in half an hour. As Annie attempts to leave, Marcus, hiding a gun, shoots her in the stomach. Annie retaliates, injuring Marcus's shoulder. Gravely wounded, she manages to call Detective Brian, informing him of Nick's location. The police arrive at the dam just in time to rescue Nick from the freezing water. He's rushed to the hospital and admitted to the ICU, his life hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Annie, bleeding heavily, stumbles into the hospital. Overwhelmed by guilt, she seeks redemption for her actions. She enters the ICU, where Nick lies, and pleads for his forgiveness. As she collapses beside him, Nick's spirit returns to his body. Tragically, Annie succumbs to her injuries, her final act being one of salvation for the person she once despised. The story concludes with Nick visiting Annie's brother Victor, weeks later, sharing a tender moment as they play together.